Welcome back to another deep dive.
Yeah.
We've got a seat saved for you right here at the table today, the learner, as we unpack something that honestly directly impacts how you experience every single waking moment of your reality.
Yeah, every moment.
Right. And whether you're prepping to lead a massive project or trying to optimize your own workflow, or, maybe you just enjoy deconstructing how the world actually operates under the hood, you are absolutely in the right place.
You really are.
Today, we are exploring this really fascinating conceptual framework about the hidden powers of the human mind. And we're drawing from some incredible insights laid out in a YouTube video by the Middle Book. It's titled The 9 Hidden Powers of the Human Mind.
It's a genuinely compelling architecture to explore. I was actually thinking about this as I sat down today. I've got my backdrop of star charts behind me,
Oh, yeah, I see
which
that.
is just a visual reminder of how humanity used to always look up, right, to
Mm,
navigate the unknown.
mm.
And it strikes me that this framework asks us to look inward to do the exact same thing.
Oh, I love that.
It addresses a question that philosophers and cognitive scientists have debated for, centuries. Why do two people experience the exact same world completely differently? You can have two people stand in the exact same room, witness the exact same event, hear the identical words, and one walks away seeing a profound opportunity while the other sees an existential threat.
Okay, let's unpack this because that is the entire premise of our deep dive today. The core argument here is that the mind isn't just a passive machine recording reality.
Right.
It's not just a camera on a dashboard. It actively creates your experience of reality. Most people are walking around entirely on autopilot, completely unaware that their perception is being constructed in real time.
Just kind of floating through.
Exactly. So today we are going to break down the 9 invisible forces shaping every decision, belief, and emotion you have so you can actually get off autopilot and take the wheel.
Because when these forces remain unconscious, they dictate our lives entirely without our permission. But when you make them visible, the mind becomes understandable. Patterns reveal themselves. So we're going to look at these 9 specific capacities, starting with the very foundation of how we interact with the world.
Right. So let's start with the foundational layer, attention. We usually treat attention as just passive observation, right? Just looking at whatever happens to be in front of us.
Yeah, just seeing what's there.
But it's much more accurate to describe it as the mind's spotlight. Imagine you're standing on a busy downtown street. Think about the sheer volume of sensory data hitting your nervous system in that one single moment.
It's staggering if you think about it.
It really is. You've got cars rushing past, hundreds of people walking in every direction, fragments of conversations, sirens in the distance, neon lights flashing. It is this massive, chaotic influx of data. And yet your mind effortlessly ignores 99% of it to focus on one single thing. Like the sound of someone suddenly calling your name from across the street.
It operates as a profound filtering mechanism. If your brain attempted to consciously process all the millions of bits of information moving through your nervous system every second, you would be entirely paralyzed.
Just frozen.
Completely. The mind has to triage. It constantly decides what deserves focus and what fades into the background noise. And that active choice is attention.
It's like that classic phenomenon, when you learn a new word and suddenly you see it everywhere. Or you buy a supposedly rare blue car, and suddenly every third vehicle on the highway is that exact shade of blue.
Right, the universe didn't magically spawn them.
No, they were always there. Your external world didn't change at all. The only thing that changed was your attention. Your brain finally decided that specific shade of blue mattered, so the spotlight found it.
What's fascinating here is that this spotlight isn't just highlighting neutral facts. It is actively shaping the world you inhabit. Attention creates a feedback loop. Well, if you continuously direct your attention toward flaws, right? Flaws in yourself, in your work, in your relationships, your attention becomes a highly skilled flaw detector.
Oh, wow.
It gets ruthlessly efficient at finding problems. So you will naturally start to experience the world as a hostile or inadequate place. Not because the world is inherently hostile, but because your attention has effectively filtered out all the encouragement and all the success. You fundamentally alter your reality based on where you point the beam.
And that spotlight doesn't just illuminate what's physically in front of us, it partners directly with what we construct internally. Which brings us to the second power, imagination.
This is a big one.
It is. I think society often writes off imagination as something reserved for children playing make-believe or strictly the domain of fantasy novelists, but that completely undermines what it actually is. Imagination is the laboratory of possibility.
I like that phrasing.
Yeah, it's the mental testing ground, where ideas and scenarios and outcomes are run through simulations long before they ever appear in the physical world.
It is arguably one of the highest cognitive abilities we possess. Every bridge ever built, every piece of software coded, every medical breakthrough existed first as an image within someone's mind.
Absolutely.
But the true psychological weight of imagination lies in how the physical body responds to it. The nervous system doesn't clearly distinguish between a deeply imagined event and a real one.
Right. Think about the last time you imagined a high-stakes scenario. Like maybe you pictured an upcoming negotiation or a difficult conversation going completely off the rails. Even though you were just sitting safely on your couch, your body reacts as if the threat is in the room.
Your heart rate spikes.
Exactly. Your heart races, your breathing gets shallow, your muscles tighten up. Your physical body is preparing for a battle that only exists in your head. Conversely, if you imagine a profoundly joyful memory, your breath calms down, your muscles relax.
And this physiological bridge is exactly why high-performance training relies so heavily on it. Elite athletes don't just practice physically. They use visualization to mentally rehearse the victory.
They run the tape in their head.
They do. They imagine the specific biomechanical movements of their body. They feel the texture of the track. They picture the exact moment of execution. This mental rehearsal literally primes the neural pathways for the real event. And this is where imagination directly interacts with attention. If you constantly imagine failure, you are priming your attention to search the environment for risks and problems that validate that mental image.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because when imagination repeatedly generates certain images of how the world works, and attention keeps finding the evidence to support them, those patterns solidify. They crystallize into the third power, which is belief.
Right, the operating system.
Exactly. We tend to walk around treating our beliefs as permanent, objective facts about reality, but they are actually just interpretations formed and hardened over time. They're just running in the background.
We all know how confirmation bias locks us into a loop, but the insight from the source material here is about weaponizing that loop intentionally. Because beliefs operate beneath conscious awareness, they act as the silent framework dictating what we perceive as possible.
Yeah.
If you shift the underlying belief first, you effectively rewrite what your brain allows you to see.
Imagine two people facing the exact same high-stakes opportunity. Let's say it's a massive career leap into an executive role. Externally, the parameters of the opportunity are completely identical for both of them.
Same job, same stakes.
Exactly. But internally, one person holds a deep-seated belief that they are capable. They believe that even if they don't know everything right away, effort leads to mastery. So they dive in, they take the action, they experiment.
And the other person.
The other person holds a core belief that they are inherently incapable, that true success is reserved for a different type of person, so they hesitate. They sabotage the interview or withdraw before they even start. The external opportunity was a constant, but the internal belief dictated the entire reality of the outcome.
And that outcome feeds right back into the confirmation bias loop, solidifying the initial belief. The person who hesitated confirms their belief that the opportunity wasn't for them. But because beliefs are essentially just learned interpretations, they are completely malleable once exposed.
That's the key.
Right? Once a belief becomes visible to you, once you step back and observe it as a construct rather than a fact, it loses its rigidity. You transition from being operated by the belief to managing it.
And as those beliefs stack up over a lifetime, they form a cohesive narrative. They form identity, which is our fourth power. Identity isn't your job title, it's the internal story your mind constantly tells about who you fundamentally are and what you are capable of becoming.
The overarching narrative.
Right. There is an incredibly sharp contrast to be made here between two simple internal statements from the source material, I failed, versus I am a failure.
It's a subtle linguistic shift, but a massive psychological one. I failed describes an event. I am a failure describes a permanent state of being.
Yes. I failed means an action didn't produce the desired result. You can analyze it, extract the data, adjust your strategy. But when a setback gets fused to your identity, the mind interprets all future challenges not as opportunities, but as existential threats.
It's dangerous.
Exactly. If you truly believe you are a failure at your core, taking a new risk feels dangerous because another mistake wouldn't just be a setback. It would be further proof of that terrible, painful core belief.
It triggers the ego's defense mechanisms. Identity is an evolving narrative, but we often treat it as a fixed label. Think about it. If you identify as a highly creative person, you naturally approach ambiguity with curiosity. You assume that finding an imaginative solution is just what you do.
It's built in.
Right. But if your identity is rigid and you tell yourself, I'm just an analytical person, I'm not creative, your mind will actively resist exploring unconventional solutions to protect those familiar boundaries. You will shut down a brainstorming session because engaging in it threatens the narrative you've built.
It's all about the meaning we assign to the raw data of our lives. And that brings us to the active processors in this mental architecture. Let's look at the fifth power, interpretation.
The filter.
Yes, there is a split-second filter that exists between the moment an event happens and the moment you feel an emotion about it. Most of us live our entire lives without ever noticing this gap, but it is the space when meaning is manufactured.
Because the events themselves are entirely neutral until the mind asks, what does this mean for me? We often conflate the raw event with our emotional reaction to it, assuming the event caused the emotion directly.
Think about two people receiving the exact same harsh criticism at work. The words spoken are identical. Person A interprets that criticism as a direct personal threat. They assign it the meaning that they are undervalued and incompetent. As a result, they feel defensive, humiliated, and they shut down. But person B receives the exact same words, and they interpret it as a roadmap. They assign it the meaning that their manager trusts them enough to give them the unvarnished truth about where they need to improve. They feel determined. The stimulus was identical, but the interpretation completely transformed the emotion.
It's important to note this isn't about toxic positivity or ignoring the sting of harsh words. It's about cognitive reframing. It's assigning a productive meaning rather than a destructive one. And once the mind assigns meaning through interpretation, it immediately starts forecasting.
It looks ahead.
Exactly. It starts predicting the future based on that meaning. This is the sixth power, expectation. Expectation is the mind's quiet, continuous prediction of what will happen next, and it subtly shapes your physical behavior long before the future actually arrives.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Consider walking into a room for a job interview. If your internal expectation is that you are going to absolutely nail the interview and they're going to love you, your body language subconsciously reflects that. Your posture is relaxed, you take up space, your voice is confident, you project safety.
Because you expect success.
Right. But if you walk into that exact same room expecting them to reject you, your physiology tightens up. You cross your arms, your voice thins out, you're cautious. You project a defensive aura.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that defensive aura fundamentally changes the chemistry in the room. The people interviewing you subconsciously pick up on those micro expressions of doubt and defensiveness, and they react to it, usually by becoming more skeptical themselves.
It feeds itself.
It does. Psychologists refer to this as the expectancy effect. We see this clearly in educational settings. When teachers are told certain students are gifted and they expect them to succeed, they subconsciously interact with them entirely differently. They offer slightly more time to answer questions, they provide more nuanced feedback. The students respond to that enriched environment, and their performance actually improves. The teacher's internal expectation actively constructed the external reality.
Okay, so we've got all these incredible autonomous forces running simultaneously. Attention is highlighting data, imagination is simulating outcomes, belief and identity are enforcing the rules, and interpretation and acceptation are assigning meaning and predicting the future. How do we actually organize this chaos?
That's where the seventh power comes in.
Right, intention. Intention is the compass. It is the unifying vector that directs all of the mind's scattered energy toward a single, coherent destination.
Without intention, the mind is entirely reactive. It just drifts. Your attention bounces from a smartphone notification to a passing anxiety to a random memory, constantly hijacked by whatever is the loudest or most immediate stimulus. Intention is what separates the signal from the noise.
Think about wandering aimlessly through a massive library. You're just walking the aisles, looking at random shelves. You pick up a book, put it down, an hour disappears.
Just drifting.
Right. Now imagine walking into that exact same library with the clear, burning intention of finding a specific book on, say, ancient Roman architecture. Suddenly, your entire perception sharpens. You ignore the fiction section, you bypass the biographies, and the specific section you need practically jumps out at you. The library hasn't changed at all, but your intention completely reorganized how you interacted with the environment.
It engages the reticular activating system in the brain. Intention gathers your attention, your imagination, and your beliefs and points them all in a single direction. And when intention is coupled with a deep sense of purpose, motivation shifts from a fleeting feeling to a sustained drive.
It locks you in.
Exactly. But even with a laser-focused intention, you are inevitably going to hit roadblocks. Projects fail, markets turn, people say no.
Which brings us to the eighth power, persistence. We often think of persistence as just grinding it out, white-knuckling through misery. But it's better understood as the quiet endurance to keep going when the results aren't visible yet. It's the engine that keeps intention moving.
We culturally attribute so much success to raw, innate talent. But if you analyze history's great innovators, the true common denominator is always persistence. It is the capacity for iterative learning.
I always marvel at the raw mechanics of how a human child learns to walk. It is a stunning display of persistence when you really break it down. A toddler will stand up, take a wobbly step, and fall down. They will do this dozens, hundreds of times.
Over and over.
But a child never sits there on the floor and interprets the fall as a fundamental failure. They don't tie the fall to their identity and think, well, I guess I'm just not a walker, I'll just crawl forever.
Right, they don't have that narrative yet.
Exactly. Falling is just data to them. It's just part of the physics problem they're trying to solve. They just get back up and adjust their balance.
It illustrates perfectly how persistence transforms effort into momentum. When that child falls and gets back up, they're literally building resilience. One attempt reveals very little, but 100 attempts reveal a pattern, and eventually mastery. Persistence allows the mind to adapt, turning mistakes into the very information required to succeed.
So what does this all mean? We have these 8 powerful gears turning inside the mind, constructing our reality second by second. But there is a final piece, the master key that oversees the entire system. And this is where we have to zoom out. Because without this final piece, you are still essentially a passenger on autopilot. The ninth and final capacity is awareness.
Awareness is metacognition. It is the most fundamental power of all. It is the silent, observing presence that watches every single thought, every emotion, and every interpretation that passes through your mind. It is the ability to create space between you, the observer, and the thought itself.
That space is everything.
It really is. Because most people are completely absorbed by the content of their thinking. An anxious thought arises, and they immediately assume they are the anxiety. They accept it as an unquestionable truth.
It's the difference between drowning in a river and watching the water. Most people live their entire lives having jumped right into the middle of the river. They are completely swept away by the raging, chaotic current of their own thoughts and beliefs. They are just tumbling through the rapids.
Getting battered against the rocks.
Yes. Awareness is the conscious process of learning to swim to the edge, stand on the shore, and just watch the water move past. You see the thought float by. I'm nervous about this presentation, but you aren't pulled under by it. You just observe it.
It is the profound realization that you are not your thoughts. You are the space in which the thoughts appear. And once you can stand on that shore and observe the flow, you gain the most powerful tool a human being can possess, which is choice.
Choice. That is the remote control for the entire architecture we've been discussing. Without awareness, your attention defaults to the negative, your imagination spins up worst-case scenarios, your interpretations assume the worst, and it all runs on automatic pilot.
A closed loop.
But with awareness, you can catch a limiting belief in real time. You can notice your posture tightening in that interview and consciously relax it. You can see a rigid identity holding you back and consciously soften it. Awareness is what allows you to actually operate the machinery.
This framework suggests that these aren't just 9 separate, interesting psychological concepts. They are a single, interconnected ecosystem. Attention selects the raw materials, imagination explores the possibilities, belief defines the boundaries, identity shapes the narrative, interpretation assigns the meaning, expectation predicts the outcome, intention sets the direction, persistence sustains the motion, and awareness oversees and optimizes the entire operation.
It fundamentally changes how you view your own experience. The big takeaway here is that your mind is not just a tool you use to think about your day. It is the very instrument through which your entire reality is experienced. You don't have to be at the mercy of random external events. You have these 9 powers at your disposal right now in every single moment. We've got you in the room with us to hopefully give you a new lens to look through today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. As you go about your day, pay attention to where your spotlight goes.
Watch the beam.
Notice what your mind is filtering in and what it's filtering out. You might be surprised by what you find.
This raises an important question to leave on, actually. If awareness is the ultimate power of standing on the shore and observing your own mind, what happens when you start applying that observation to the collective mind? Think about the cultural beliefs, the societal expectations, and the shared identities we absorb every day. If you can step off the autopilot of your own mind, could you also be the one to step off the autopilot of the culture around you?
We'll leave you with that. See you next time.